All right, thanks everyone for coming. My name is Sarah Dixon Morgan, and I'm a Colby Fellow with the Wellness Initiative. This is an event called Grades Are Out Now What, where we are going to try and process the not fun time of receiving grades that you might not have been expecting. So we're going to start off with a conversation led by Dr. Peter Cornish, who is one of our amazing counselors here at the law school, and he is going to help us as we begin the process. Thank you, Dr. Cornish.
Right. Hi, everyone. And again, we're a small crowd, and I'm glad we got some of the technical stuff figured out so we can at least have a bit of an audience here. So my thought today when asked to do this, and I like the other title, Grades Are Out Now What, or Grade Grief, or whatever it happens to be. It can be a real shock, as we know, and a lot of times it's the 1Ls who got through that first fall semester having no idea how, other than hard work and a little prayer and here you go, and then coming back and getting those grades sometimes pretty close to the beginning of the semester when we're trying to get our head into games. And we know between ranking and the curves and all of those other statistical things, sometimes it can fall flat, right? Where back in the day, a B or a B minus really wasn't so bad. Well, apparently those aren't the grades that you want to be getting in law school, even though, I would argue that to some degree, but there's some feelings to it, right? And when I sort of started at the law school, 3.5 years ago, and I was trying to figure out the whole process, I remember getting smacked myself in the spring semester with all these students that were coming in, 1Ls in particular, coming in. It was like, what's this legal methods BS? Why do I got to take this class? And for so many people, it was very personal. It was like, okay, you are not good enough, right? You are, and I'll use this in a negative way because that's how students, it was like, I had to go to BOCES in law school or something, it felt bad because, a lot of times, especially the first semester and hopefully subsequent semesters can be naturally better. It's a lot of unknowns, a lot of adjustments. There's a learning process that takes place, which is certainly different in the spring. But again, as you're entering the spring semester, and if you do have some not so great grades coming in from the fall, it can really be a hard start, right? It's not like you're psyched, you're motivated, you're running, you can't wait to talk to people about the grades and all that stuff. You're just kind of feeling like, oh man. And then what ends up happening, and again, a lot of this is anecdotal, but what ends up happening is some of those initial fears and doubts, that imposter syndrome that you're going to be hearing about for the entire time that you're there at the law school, and then your own self-doubts about, is this really for me? And that could be the legal profession in general. That could be Albany Law School in particular. It has you questioning those things. And then, of course, any of those doubters in our lives previously, they're just echoing like, and even if they're not saying, I told you so, there's might be that feeling, and whether it's family or friends who have no idea what the law school experience is, right? So I think, our undergrad cohort, maybe they went to graduate school, maybe they went to law school, maybe they went to med school, whatever. Every experience is different. But what it ends up being is that it becomes this collective whole of, this doesn't feel good. And now I got to go through yet another semester, if not another year or two of this. And how do you shake it? And what I have found, and what I have tried to do with the many, many students that I've worked with over the years, and again, particularly those who are hitting it from the fall to the spring semester in terms of grades, is really looking at some of those cognitive behavioral strategies that can help at least challenge those negative emotions. They may not go away. Your GPA is your GPA, or that damn B minus is that damn B minus, and you may have legal methods and suck it up and you got to do it. But then it comes down to, but how do I keep it going on a day-to-day basis? And what it comes down to is, again, one, reminding yourself all of the effort, the desire, the reasons you're there in the first place. Sometimes we forget that, especially when we're hitting the skids. Reminding oneself of the skills and abilities that you have and brought with you coming in, because you got into Albany Law for a reason, and you're there. It's, again, challenges, it's different, it's, much more perhaps cerebral and, all this other stuff, but there are adjustments to be made. And ideally, some of you, if you met with some difficulties in the fall semester, have at least an idea of what might need to be tweaked. It's probably very unlikely that you all have to start back at, step one and reinvent everything. That's probably not the case. But I think it's fair to say, and even some of the older students here or more senior students here will acknowledge that probably each semester along the way, there's little pearls that you can pick up that can help you tweak how you're going to approach the next semester, right? So, whatever adversities, if you were a 1L, those things for first, you'll never experience again. You'll never, walk into the 2000 building for the first time, or be in that first lecture as a law student. All those ships have sailed. Now it comes back to, all right, now that some of those firsts are done and I can put them behind us, and some of them were certainly challenging, how do I, again, sort of bolster my bag of tricks as I'm coming into the spring semester, right? And again, that's doing a lot of the same things you're doing or mixing it up. For instance, if everyone wants to get ahead, well, in some classes you can't be getting ahead, or it's in some ways damn near impossible to get ahead because there is such depth and density in what you're learning. So again, that may not be a realistic goal. Maybe the idea of staying up with the readings, which isn't such a bad idea, is a more manageable one. And then, of course, how you break that down throughout. The real question is, are there things that are obvious that I can be looking at and tweaking? And then are there other things that just, need to be keep on keeping on, right? And some of that may be as difficult as it is, especially if you're not feeling confident in your own experience as a law student, is speaking with the TAs or speaking with the professors. They, as you all know, and perhaps have done so, they might have a couple of suggestions, tricks, and tips that might be just a little bit of the edge that you need in a particular class. The other thing too is, of course, knowing that, all the classes are going to be different, right? Some of the professors are going to be spot on, just filled with knowledge, and, you need to be writing feverishly and all that. And others, might take you on that sort of that wanderlust through some tangential story that's going on in the world. And, quite frankly, 15, 20, 30 minutes of class may not need to be retained because it was just conversation. It was just, other things. And what I've also found, and this is really coming from the students themselves, because I've never sat in a law lecture before, is also, sort of streamlining even the participation of your peers, right? Sometimes our peers make excellent, wonderful take-home points. And then other times it's just a lot of the same, liking to hear themselves speak and, all that other kind of stuff. So one of the things that I think a lot of folks do coming from a fall semester into a spring semester is look to be, how do I get more efficient? And that's more efficient in regards to not only your class time in terms of what you're attending to, what you're taking notes on, what you're processing afterwards, but how am I more efficient maybe perhaps in my own studying? And that may mean, perhaps you're an individual studier and, that sort of worked for you. But I think there are benefits, not all the time. There are the benefits to having those study groups or having that group process. And, the downside, of course, is the obvious stuff that we're chatting, we're socializing, we're doing more of that than the actual content of the course. But if you and whomever that one or two or three people that you might be partnering with can sort of acknowledge that, this is a time to be working, and we can hang out and, watch something afterwards or do whatever. What that allows is it helps prevent those stuck moments. And again, I think probably each of you have had maybe a rule or a concept or whatever that you just tried to get over and over and over again, and you were just spinning your wheels. And a lot of times we waste hours or at least a good chunk of time. Whereas again, if we had somebody to hopefully correctly explain things in more layman terms or at a more simplistic level. That's the one benefit of the group approach, is that you may not, waste hours trying to figure something out if someone can sort of help you out. So it's about the tweaking, right? So tweaking the study habits, meeting with, again, whether it be the classmates, TAs, professors, whomever, and then most importantly, acknowledging, again, if it was your first ever semester here, or maybe just the fall semester, if you're a 2L or a 3L, putting it into perspective with the idea that, again, you can have things, some challenges coming up, but it really comes down to, how do you not get caught in your own head, right? How do you not let some of those negative thoughts, some of that self-doubt pervade and prevent you from moving on? Before some of you joined, we were talking about this weird transition back, right? Especially when we did a little bit remote, because that was sort of a start. But was it really the start? And then now we're in person. Is this the real start? Well, guess what? It's already a week and a half into school. Over here at pharmacy, we're already like, this is our third week. And so they're in a real flux, because they're like, what the hell happened to those first 2 weeks? Because a lot of folks stayed home. And of course, sometimes you got to be in it, right? You got to be in the library to be feeling it, or you got to be on campus to be feeling it. So, the whole COVID experience can only exacerbate some of just that feeling of not getting started, or feeling as though you're getting started on the right track. So the idea comes down to, again, fall semester, whatever year you are, it's in the books. What are the challenges coming up, not only in terms of the actual classes, and maybe it is legal methods that you're taking, but again, what are those things that can be refined, tweaked, and highlighted? Ultimately knowing that there will be, it pretty much seems every semester, there's always going to be that one course that's an Achilles heel, whether it's property or con law, again, for different folks, whatever strikes their head is going to be different. But there's always going to be that Achilles heel. There's always going to be maybe that one that comes a little bit more naturally. So again, that's where the prioritization comes in, and sort of the adjustment of the approach. But ultimately, the goal will be, as we have, graduates and 3Ls, and even in the same space here, is that, a bit of that stick-to-itiveness and really meeting those challenges head on is ultimately what's going to save you. So with that, again, I just wanted to provide just sort of an overview of the concept of the fact that, okay, here we are, spring semester. I need to get motivated. I need to sort of shake it off and get on track so I can finish strongly. And that just requires a little bit of, instead of it all swirling up there, put in a name on it. And again, whether it's grades are out, now what, or grade grief, or hey, it's spring semester time to sort of get my act in gear, it sort of comes down to, again, what are those things I can adjust and not personalize as, me as a poor student, negative person, but try to improve upon moving forward. Now, with that said, again, in terms of different folks in various years and all that kind of stuff, I'll throw it out there. If there's any particular questions or any particular struggles that, you might be feeling, with the caveat, of course, here we are, a small group, but we're a group nonetheless, that if there's anything more personal, or that you don't feel like sharing in a larger group, that you can certainly reach out to me individually, not only through the email, but also, we can set up a meeting or something like that. But just want to throw it out. One, if there's any particular thoughts, observations, questions, or even if anybody wants to share their own experiences, and then we can go from there and see what we got.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cornish. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, and we will begin our discussion.
Okay.